Cool. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, well, Ashley, thanks for having me, and thank you for everyone at Metis turning in, and anyone who's finding this on the internet. My name's Pietro Moran. I'm actually the partnerships manager at a company called The Giving Block, and we help nonprofits donate or accept cryptocurrency rather. So we help donors donate cryptocurrency, and we help nonprofits accept them. But we can dive into that after this.
Cool. So how did you find your way to the giving block? How long have you been in crypto? Like, what does that transition look like for you?
Yeah. So I got into crypto, I want to say officially 2016-ish. I was still in college, had a friend of mine who had told me a story about his brother trying to buy Bitcoin on Mount Gox and losing the money. And, you know, it was unfortunate at the time to hear that, but it was my first exposure to this space. I guess a long story short, I had an economics background, and so I was curious about just cryptocurrency as a tool for individual freedom and sovereignty. But fast forward to, I guess, my professional entrance to the space, I started working at a company called Proof of Talent, which was a crypto-focused recruiting firm. And then from there, made my way over to the Giving Block to, assist on the partnership side, helping institutions and folks in the crypto space, achieve their social impact goals. I think that's a really exciting niche to target because a lot of the things that we do in crypto are so financialized. But with that wealth, we're trying to assist people in giving back and doing good in the world in a way that's more efficient than traditional mechanisms.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, I was introduced to this space not very long ago, and I just joined the Metis team in January. So I'm quite new. I have an
Congrats.
education background. Thanks. Yeah, I have an education background, but I think my perception before joining the Metis team, and especially before going to ETH Denver and like my brain exploding with use cases, I had this perception that it's just all about crypto and like turning a quick profit and hearing about all these meme coins. I didn't have any understanding of what the capacity of the technology really was. And once I started learning about that, my brain started running into nonprofit ideas because I did some nonprofit management studies in graduate school. And then I found the Giving Block, and here we are. So I'm really excited to have this chat with you today.
Yeah, likewise. And I mean, I think it's really important to highlight the fact that this is a community effort. We're very thankful and grateful to our donors, the folks in the communities, various coin communities, NFT projects, even traditional centralized institutions that are working in crypto. Making this a reality for us and helping the nonprofits who are doing great work is extremely compelling and exciting, where that wasn't necessarily possible or even a thing even 3 years ago. So, I give credit to everyone who's participating in this movement and taking the journey with us. And yeah, can't wait to tell you more.
Awesome. Okay, well, so you've told us a little bit about the Giving Block, and I kind of looked through the website, and you've already got like quite a big ecosystem of partners that are already onboarded. And I love that you can decide like what mission you want to support with your donation, and you can do that search. How like what are some of the major missions that you see nonprofits joining to like receive donations on the Giving Block for?
That's actually a great question. And the answer is really that we have a diverse group of nonprofit partners and clients. We have over 1,300 at this point in time. And the goal for this year is to achieve, close to 5,000, if not more. And I think it's certainly achievable, except, or rather, it's extremely achievable, but it also goes into like many different verticals. So to answer your question, there's a lot of mission-oriented organizations, whether those be for like cancer research. We work with the American Cancer Society. We have, disaster relief organizations, very timely in this discussion about Ukraine, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But, you have a lot of folks who are, just all over the nonprofit landscape. I don't think we have one particular one that's like most active. Although I will say that the crypto community has been extremely excited about things pertaining to education, especially in the hard sciences, computer science, engineering, especially when it comes to underserved communities in those disciplines. So we have great relationships with folks like Girls Who Code and other organizations. Code to Inspire is another one that comes to mind. And what we like to do is bring crypto to philanthropy, not just as a donation medium, But if we can help expand the education and adoption of the space, I think that's how we fulfill our mission, right? It's not just catering to, the folks that may already be technologically savvy and want to just onboard this as a new means of raising funds, but actually getting the messaging out there and ingratiating ourselves to these communities so that they feel like they're actively participating and not feeling like it's just simply transactional, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the missions of my role with Metis is to educate people on like what the blockchain space is like and how it can benefit all types of organizations and causes and creative communities. Because there is this huge barrier to entry because people just don't understand. And so,
Definitely.
yeah, I think it's exciting that the Giving Block is doing that.
Yeah.
So what are some benefits for nonprofits that are like receiving crypto donations? Or if you were going to go somewhere else before I cut you off,
No,
I'd do
you
that.
read my mind, so this is great. This is a sign of a good interviewer, right? The way that we add value at the Giving Block, I think, has a few different prongs. So I'd love to dive into each of those if it's possible. Um, the first is that what we want to do is allow and onboard nonprofit organizations to accept crypto as a medium for fundraising. So we're partially a payment processor, we're partially a crowdfunding platform. That allows us a lot of different things to do campaigns with nonprofits in crypto where payments are much more, instantaneous, much more transparent in regards to having all the transactions on chain and traceable. I'm sure we'll have some questions on that later. But those two things I think are really like the sweet spot. And then it's the intersection, I think, of the crypto community and those crypto enabled nonprofits where we then get to have a lot of fun, right? So I get to work with our partners, come up with really different bespoke types of campaigns, do things like help NFT projects donate to a crypto address related to a nonprofit directly out of, say, the royalties or mint proceeds from a project. And that's stuff that was never really possible with traditional payment rails. And what's exciting as well is recently, actually, this is the first podcast I've mentioned this on. We've just recently joined the Shift4 family of companies, and they're a traditional payment processor that has access to over 200,000 merchants and did roughly $200 billion in payments volume. So now we're trying to take this mainstream and allow crypto to penetrate these deep networks of institutions, vendors, stadiums, casinos, resorts, where it wasn't previously possible, right? And so the value add for our nonprofits especially is that we abstract a lot of the challenges. And you mentioned the steep learning curve of crypto earlier. We take away all those for the non-technical folks, we take away a lot of the difficulties of onboarding into crypto. So our solution allows for nonprofits to onboard in a way that allows donations to be automatically liquidated for cash. So they get a bank wire in the same way that they're traditionally used to accepting donations. Every nonprofit that we work with is assigned, a representative, really a client success person here on our side. And we help with the education, the marketing strategy, and really just amending any sort of major gift, acceptance policies so that people have all of the infrastructure and learnings to do this appropriately. Back to the point of really making it feel less transactional, we want people to feel like they can come here and stay in the crypto ecosystem, with the comfort that they have the tools and resources to make this effective in terms of fundraising. We don't want it to make we don't want it to be a nonprofit's job to learn crypto. We want them to focus on the great work they do, but have all these extra resources and tools to make it easy for them to raise, extra funds.
That's amazing. I know that in any experience I've had in fundraising for nonprofits before, there's typically like a huge cost, like benefits and galas and kind of some of the more traditional ways that organizations gravitate to raise money. They
Mm-hmm.
cost so much. And oftentimes that cost of like organizing the event offsets the donations that you receive. And so I love the idea of being able to open up so many new avenues for fundraising that don't incur those high upfront costs and still allow you to
Mm-hmm.
incorporate so many people in your mission. Um,
Absolutely.
I'm wondering, you talked about major gift acceptance policies. Could you say a little bit more on that? Because there's not a whole lot of like regulation in the crypto space. So there is like a little gray area on like, how can people do a write-off for crypto and how does that all work?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not my area of expertise, but I can certainly speak on it. As somebody who works with partnerships, more of a people person. But The the way it works is we often will have a consultative first meeting with a nonprofit, see if they need to amend anything within their own charter or acceptance policy to enable them to accept this different type of crypto donation. But in reality, it's all quite simplified and actually, explicit in the IRS guidelines as well, which is actually really nice. So what you'll notice, IRS guidelines specify crypto as property. So the nice analogy that we use with our nonprofit partners, which actually gets the gears turning and makes this real for them in those first calls, is that it's very similar to a stock donation. So when you have a stock certificate that you want to donate to a nonprofit, it's a very similar process donating crypto, at least from a tax perspective. So what that means for us is that we work with 501c3 or accredited organizations, meaning that they have to be of the correct status to accept these donations so that you can at least get the benefits on your taxes. What that looks like as a donor, and one of the great value adds we bring to the donor community, is that when you have this appreciated crypto, right? Let's just say you had a great year in this bull market the past year, and you want some gains that, or you have some extra gains that you might want to offset for tax purposes. The question that you end up asking yourself is, would I rather give this to the IRS or would I rather give it to my favorite cause, whichever one of those 1,300 nonprofits that may be? So that ends up being a very easy question in a lot of donors' minds, and we try to make it as easy as possible. Then what they had to do is get a fair value deduction for that crypto that they're donating, up to 60% of their income or a little bit less, depending on various modifications to the specific rules. But what's great about that is, at least in the United States, and granted, we are not tax experts at the Giving Block. We always say to consult your tax advisor, financial advisor, right? Before I get in trouble here. But with that being said, there certainly are tax advantage ways of giving in crypto. And if it's helpful, I can give a really simple example that might make this clear for anyone listening in. So when you think about having made a bunch of money in crypto in the past year, your options for donation are really to pay your capital gains and incur that tax event. And then roughly speaking, let's say it's long-term capital gains, you'll pay 20% on that. And then you can donate the cash after you pay your taxes, but taking that tax haircut. The nice thing is for us, when you're donating the crypto directly as property, you don't incur that capital gain, so that you're not paying those taxes on that lot that you're sending to the nonprofit. So at the end of the day, not only are you getting a tax savings, but the nonprofit's getting more money that you would have otherwise donated from that total amount. So it's actually quite compelling, and a lot of our donors are very excited to stay crypto native and have a really simple experience. But also, when the tax man comes around, giving it to a good cause is always preferable. So that's worked to our advantage.
Yes, that's amazing. That's really exciting. For anybody who's listening and doesn't know, you mentioned 501c3, and I just want to explain that that's the IRS code classification for tax exempt organizations like nonprofits or public charities. So, not familiar, that's what a 501c3 is.
Exactly right. And for any of our international listeners, we are an international organization. So I don't want you to think that we're limited to US based nonprofits. It certainly represents the bulk of our partners, but we're expanding into other countries. The easier ones were English speaking countries, but we're in Europe, we're in North America, some LATAM, but more options always rolling out. So if you have a nonprofit or an organization that you think could benefit, please feel free to search it. We might have them already onboarded.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. So I'm curious, what are some challenges or hesitations that nonprofits might have in receiving crypto? Because it seems to me when talking with you, oh, this is a no-brainer, but what are some of the questions that they have or the things that they're like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And actually, it's something that we do. We take a lot of care to make sure we get this right, because oftentimes nonprofits will come to us. Maybe they've seen us in a article in, say, like the Chronicle of Philanthropy, or some distribution channel that they're normally getting their news from, and maybe they're ready to take the step to at least have that initial conversation. A lot of the initial trepidation, hesitation is around what the heck is crypto, right? Maybe you've heard about it, maybe somebody in your family owns it and has been shilling it to you at Thanksgiving or something, right? I'm sure we all have one of those stories, but at the end of the day, it's how can this really be a benefit to their organization without, again, hitting that wall of that learning curve. So the big questions are around, do I need to manage private keys, right? Do I need to, custody these assets myself? Do we have the team that's even, do we even have the bandwidth or the team to do this type of thing? The great answer to that is we have a non-custodial solution with a partner exchange that allows that, difficulty and challenge to be abstracted away. So basically all you need is someone to manage a dashboard, and you can see the donor information coming in on your side. You can send thank you emails, etc. But when it comes down to it, the handling of those assets, we can convert to cash super easily. Another big question is, how do we appropriately jump into the pool of crypto, right? It's very, let's just say, it's a very different experience marketing to, say, the traditional donor base. The demographic there might be 60 to 75, right? Maybe my parents, your parents, or grandparents. And that traditional experience looks like, I send my check in the mail, I get my tote bag as a reward and a thank you letter, and that's it, right? When you bridge everything over to the internet, or even like, go Web3 or the metaverse, it's a little bit different, right? So there's questions around, how do I speak to that audience that might be Gen Z, millennial, the avid, active crypto community? So we help them, on all fronts, taking care of the infrastructure side, but also with the messaging and the strategy around, okay, maybe you need to start using that Twitter a little bit more, right? Like maybe you need to start, memeing a little bit, or don't spell Bitcoin as 2 words. That's always a big one, right? And so you can imagine all these things that maybe seem obvious for people in crypto, but are certainly not obvious to, the vast majority of people that aren't in the space. And so we want to make them feel prepared and like ready to get into the space in a way that lets them be effective with their campaigning. Because we've seen the most success when people really, jump in and are animated and active on, crypto Twitter, or just in their wording around how they market their, new crypto acceptance offering. And we help them every step of the way. And if they have questions, they can always feel free to reach out.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely like a whole new language that you have to learn when you come into the space.
Totally.
So that's yeah, I could see that being
The
overwhelming.
GMs and the we were all going to make it and everything are not normal in the traditional nonprofit space, but it allows them to have fun too. I think it gets them a little bit out of their comfort zone at first, and then they realize the efficacy of the crypto donor community. Meaning, you can run a campaign, to your point earlier about the cost of running or throwing a gala, right? COVID was a huge accelerant in this, right? It's not easy to have a gala during the middle of a pandemic, but you can have a Twitter space and a call to action on Twitter, or an online campaign asking people to donate this crypto that they have, right? That's all relatively low cost, and it punches above its weight in terms of efficacy. Because there's actually a fun stat I'll share with you. At this point in time, for every nonprofit that accepts crypto, there's roughly speaking 400,000 crypto users worldwide. So there's a real asymmetric opportunity for these folks to say, there's a huge pool of money that is sitting out there and people want to donate. And there's a tax advantage for them. But there's not that many outlets yet. I mean, I like to think 1,300 is a lot of nonprofits, but there's certainly a lot of meat on the bone in terms of how big we can make this, and how many organizations we can help out.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I was thinking along the lines of the benefits of using crypto and seeing nonprofits on the blockchain, specifically for donors, because I think one of the biggest barriers for people to make a donation is this lack of trust. And
Mhm.
we talk about trust a lot in the blockchain space, because everything on the blockchain is public, and so you can see all the transactions. And I think for the nonprofit space, that's huge, because the biggest question that people have is, how are you going to use my money? And are you actually using it for what you're saying that you're using it for? And there are all kinds of like news stories about nonprofits that mismanaged funds, or
Mhm.
donations that didn't get where they were supposed to go. So I can see for donors the trust that's built by being able to like really look and hold the organization accountable by looking to see where all of their transactions are going.
Mhm.
um, and right now in some due diligence, if I wanted to go and just donate cash or some other kind of gift in kind to a nonprofit and I wanted to do some due diligence, I would maybe look for their 1090 or 1099.
Hmm.
Wait, 990, not 1099, 990,
Sure.
which is like their reporting form for the IRS.
Hmm.
And, that's public record. But if I approach an organization, they may just willingly offer it to me, but sometimes I have a little bit of a hard time. I have to submit like a public records request. And even then, there's some confusion over, is everything that's on this form accurate? What do these breakdowns actually mean?
Hmm.
And being able to look on a blockchain, or even I heard about a project where when people make a donation, they would receive an NFT and then be able to see from that NFT exactly where their donation dollars went.
Hmm.
That's really exciting for donors, I think. And I just wonder if you've like had that conversation with any of the nonprofits that are already on your platform.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question, actually. I'm really glad you asked it. The thing is that, as you mentioned, there is a lot of, let's just call it bureaucratic waste in the giving space generally, or just lack of transparency, right? And I think where we offer a solution or just a way to cut through that noise is, every time you make a transaction with us on the giving block, you have a transaction ID associated with that. And you can see that it's going directly to a wallet controlled by an employee of the nonprofit, right? So a lot of other crowdfunding sites, or let's just say, you know, organizations that might act as middlemen, we kind of obviate the need for some of that insofar as if you can send funds directly to an organization and then vet directly what that organization is doing with those funds, you can kind of untangle that maybe sort of tricky situation of reporting, et cetera. The other thing that's great is that oftentimes nonprofits will make a public statement as to what they're doing with the funds, right? We have a lot of case studies that we've shouted out on our Twitter, and we even advise some of our nonprofit clients to do this on their own social media, is say, well, if you donate one ETH or one BTC or whatever amount of currency that they want to use as an example, it will have X amount of impact, right? So one BTC might build two schools in some rural area somewhere, or dig a well for a whole village in some remote jurisdiction, right? I think that's a really cool way to interact directly with the nonprofit without feeling like that's sort of a gate kept community where you might send funds in but get sort of intermittent information out of it. Like everyone gets a newsletter, right? But how do you know exactly what's going on? So I think you're absolutely right. We want to make it simple so that you can even use your donation receipt as a public commitment to doing good, and proof that you even donated, right? There's a lot of folks that'll raise money for charity, but how do you even know where the funds end up, right? What we've seen actually become a sort of viral opportunity for us is when you make a donation to a campaign, you can publicly post your donation receipt on Twitter. People can hold you accountable and see that you did the thing you were going to. That's all newly enabled by sort of Web3, the metaverse, all this stuff. Insofar as you have an NFT auction, like you mentioned, you can tie that to some sort of reporting. Granted, we want to crawl and walk before we run with some of these nonprofits, right? There's again, we want to get them excited and comfortable about the donations first. But we're seeing some on the sort of forward-looking part of the curve saying, okay, now how do we have a metaverse event, or how do we get out there and have an NFT auction, for example, or how do we do something with like an artist where they have like an online concert. And one of the great things about being on the partnership side of the business is we can pair up those institutions with, say, crypto-enabled firms that are doing exactly that and want to do good in the world. So a perfect example is we had a charity concert with our friends over at Audius, if you've ever heard of them. And they actually raised over $200,000 in a single day for a cause fund, which we have, which is really just an index of thematically aligned nonprofits where you can make one donation, but to many organizations at once. And so we had one created for the arts and culture, right? So it was a perfect pairing of, okay, Audius is doing great things in the Web3 sort of music space. And then we have all these nonprofits that are helping musicians or getting materials and, education to those who need it. What better way to, have a fun event for our donors to get some extra value, but then also know that the money is flowing directly to those organizations. So it's a great way to marry transparency and utility in a way, in a way that hasn't really been done in the past. So that's kind of the fun part of my job, and even working with, the Metis team. We can have a really like interesting whiteboarding session on what we want to do and take it anywhere.
Yeah, that's so cool. I didn't know that you offered that, the ability to make one donation, but have it be spread out over multiple organizations that support the same cause. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So I'll dig into that just a little bit for anyone listening, because I think this is, it's not like a technological breakthrough, but it is one of those ease of use things that makes donating through us a lot easier. Because say you have an interest in climate related issues, right? Um, we saw that individuals were going and making, say, 10 separate donations, which can be a clunky user experience, right? You don't want to do 10 separate individual things. What you can do, though, is donate to one fund that disperses equally to a bunch of organizations you care about. So we created these cause funds. We have 15 of them right now, and sort of a 16th targeted for Ukraine relief. But what they are is, again, thematically aligned charities that self-select into these buckets, so that if you want to donate to, you know, freedom related causes, or climate related causes, or animal related causes, you can make that one donation and simply send it to all the constituent, nonprofits that make up that fund, as opposed to having to do 16 or whatever transactions. It's also efficient in regards to, depending on the blockchain you're using, fees, gas, etc. Making one donation, especially in bulk, is oftentimes more, judicious use of your resources. So we try to make it as easy as possible. And it also allows nonprofits that maybe don't have the biggest reach in terms of their social media. Maybe it's a small or medium sized organization, but it's doing the same things as other large scale organizations in a same category. I think we can, you know, to the extent of not wanting to just let the winners win, meaning the biggest organizations, we want to make sure that everyone's getting a piece of that pie in terms of donation volume. And so that's another way for them to participate without having to go out and source individual donors, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's incredible. I know that for a lot of organizations, especially like smaller nonprofits, it's difficult to get funds for like administrative costs. Like
Totally.
people want to know that the dollars that I'm giving are is going to build or going to help dig a well, but I'm not really interested in keeping the lights in your office on. And I read this book, it was Thirst, about charity water.
Hmm.
And the way they structured their organization was they had two separate funds. So like people could donate specifically for the missions that they were working on, but also there was an admin fund where people could just put money in to keep the lights on and keep people in their jobs doing the good work, which I
Hmm.
appreciated so much, and can see how easy that would be to set up in the crypto space.
Hmm.
And also, it provides an opportunity for organizations that are working toward the same mission to collaborate and feel a little bit less like they're competing for the same funds. I think that is an issue that a lot of smaller nonprofits make face when they come into a new space, because um, in a lot of grant applications, there's a space to say like what other organizations are working toward the same mission, and are
Hmm.
these resources really beneficial if they're going to you when other people are doing the same work. And this seems like an opportunity to make a much more collaborative effort rather than like, oh, I'm competing for the same dollars.
Yeah, you make a really good point on that. And I think it lends itself to a lot of different like factors that played into, I think, us having the success that we've had so far, which is, I think, in the more traditional giving space, like you said, it's relatively competitive to go after those grant dollars or donor dollars. There's a lot of maybe donor fatigue in terms of how many galas can you really go to in a year? How many causes can you actively vet on a, in during giving season, right? Like it's not easy. And I think what we've noticed is that crypto offered a bit of a lifeline to those smaller organizations that maybe weren't getting that marketing penetration or just getting their message out there. For small and medium nonprofits, I think crypto really came in the clutch, where they couldn't host maybe some of their in-person events, and then actually offered a totally new donor demographic rather than the ones that they could traditionally rely on. So we always talk about how there's a lot of blue sky in crypto in terms of, you know, it isn't antagonistic or competitive, because many of the communities want to do good in some way. And for the majority of folks that are donating, it's the most appreciated asset on their personal balance sheet. So like it's the thing they want to donate if they can. they just haven't had an outlet. And so we're kind of bridging the gap there where, again, you might want to get this like new exposure, but you didn't know how to do it. We make it really easy and can take you to market really quickly, in a way that is, easier than going after like big whale donors in the traditional sense, right, where you don't have a lot of resources. And I think the partnerships that we create with organizations like yours and also, the other partners we have are going to be fuel for that fire insofar as, taking, sort of patronage of specific nonprofits to the next level, because you can do so many different things in the crypto space that you can't do in traditional finance. For example, like use staking rewards to donate to a nonprofit, or donate with NFTs, or like, do low cost donations via layer twos and other stuff. That's, that's not even a part of the conversation. So we have so much room to grow that, I don't feel like anybody's going to feel competitive for a long time.
Yeah, yeah, there's so much opportunity. And I'm excited and thinking about like Metis is working on building out DAC structure, so trying to add some more functional tooling to a DAO.
Hmm.
And that's something that we're working on building out right now, but I could really see a lot of applications for that in a nonprofit setting where we're opening that space up to community governance and more input, but also letting the people who are closest to the issue have control over a lot of things that make sense for them to be involved in. I
Hmm.
think one of the things that I consider when I'm looking at supporting a nonprofit is how many people, like local grassroots level people, are involved in actually serving the mission. Because it's one thing for me to say I want to support human trafficking victims in Thailand, but if I don't live in that space and I'm not familiar with how the local government works or what
Hmm.
it looks like for these people to transition, then my efforts are going to like fall short. So being able to assign those specific roles, but still have the accountability and the transparency of the blockchain is really exciting for me. So I'm super pumped that Metis is working on that and that we're partnering with the Given Block on that.
That's huge. No, I think you're thinking of it the exact right way. And I mean, if we want to be forward looking for all the futurists that might be tuning in, right, we can also see, and maybe it takes a decade or longer, but like at what point do, philanthropies almost, or nonprofits become DAOs to some extent, right? Where you have folks with local knowledge that can contribute to the best practices of, distribution in terms of getting funds to the people who need it most. I think you guys are leaning into it. You're definitely one of the most forward thinking organizations we've talked to on that front. And so, I give you a lot of props given that, we're still in the sort of bridging the Web 2 nonprofits into Web 3. And you're going, above and beyond. So it'll be exciting to see what you come up with.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm really stoked to be a part of this team. We have an incredible group of people who are working on this, so I'm excited about it. So I think that we've kind of hit a lot of the questions that I had on benefits and barriers for donors and for nonprofits, and it seems to be like pretty clear that the barriers are really just an understanding that you have to overcome, and the Giving Block's doing a great job of helping people bridge that learning gap. Um, I want to know like what the donation options are. So I
Hmm.
saw on the website that there's a crypto giving pledge. Could you explain a little bit about that? Because there were some big names on the board for people who have joined that.
Yeah, we've so I guess to start at the sort of lowest level and work our way up. As far as giving options generally, so through our widget, we have the option to donate over 60 different crypto assets right now. Those include BTC and ETH, some of the higher volume ones that you notice, but then all sorts of different projects. So, we've been fortunate to continually integrate more and more coins, and we'll continue to do so. I think with our recent partnership with Shift4, we'll have even more infrastructure and tooling to get as many assets onboarded as possible. And I just want to say to any of our partners listening, we are aggressively trying to expand that offering just to give people the most variety as they can. Now, there are multiple ways to give that you highlight, and I appreciate you bringing that up. So the easiest way to donate, if you just want to make a one-off donation, is to find us at thegivingblock.com. We have a widget that allows you to donate seamlessly from whatever crypto wallet you're using. But then if you want to have a bit more of an engaged donation experience or plan, we allow for a few different things. So you did mention our crypto giving pledge. That allows people to take a pledge, which is essentially, holding you publicly accountable or making a public commitment to do good. where you can donate a percentage of your crypto every year. That typically falls around 1%, but it fluctuates given that an institution like an FTX, for example, which has taken the pledge, might not donate 1% of everything given how extremely large that is. But we've been very lucky to work with great people, Mike Novogratz, for example, Melton Demirs, Ryan Selkis, you know, some phenomenal names. And I can't, do justice to everyone there, even though as much as I want to list the whole list. But we've had a lot of great, exposure and gotten a lot of great feedback from them in terms of wanting to be public about their giving, right? I think a lot of people in crypto have had the perception of all this wealth is like tucked away and kind of kept in the dark. These people are bringing to light the amount that they want to give back. Not that it has to be a public amount or anything, but at least they're holding themselves accountable and letting their community see that they're doing that, which is really exciting. And that's available to individuals and institutions. So we don't discriminate in regards to who you are or how much you're donating. If you want to hold yourself accountable, you certainly can.
Awesome. That's really exciting. I noticed that there were a lot of opportunities to donate to organizations serving Ukraine right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you have like a specific, I think that's even like highlighted on your website right now, isn't it? I can't remember.
Yeah, so we have a Ukrainian emergency relief fund. So we've partnered with a few of our nonprofit clients who are directly working in the region and have actively spoken to us about how they're making their funds kind of go to work to assist those in need at the moment. It's one of those cause funds that I mentioned. So it's an index product where if you feel like donating to variety of organizations that are helping the region out, you can do so through our website. You can also find those organizations individually if you feel particularly called to donate to a specific cause. We certainly want to give you as much flexibility to donate wherever you want, but we've had a lot of interest and have partnered with quite a few folks in terms of getting those distributions out. I think one of the big things that people are recognizing is an off-ramp to fiat is incredibly important, because crypto in a wallet, isn't food, shelter, blankets, security in the sense that the aid, that people might need at this moment. So we've definitely acted with our infrastructure, and we've been lucky to leverage what we've already built to help folks who want to donate, to offload those assets into cash to get the money and resources to folks who really need it. And we'll continue to run that fund as long as the situation persists, and potentially longer than that, just to ensure that we have it top of mind. And I think one thing I want to highlight too is just how cool it's been to see how quickly the response has been from the crypto community, right? On crypto Twitter, I feel like I see all the time people making some sort of commentary about Ukraine, or making sure that they're staying abreast or on top of the relevant information. We can move so fast. I think we spun up the fund in 2 or 3 days after the news hit. And so I feel very lucky and privileged to be working with the folks we are, and want to say thank you to anyone who's donated or is thinking about donating, because it's really, not just about donating funds when it's convenient for you, but also in times of crisis, right? We're there to sort of answer the call.
Yeah, it's been really incredible to see people step up, and just the speed with which everyone's like, look, it doesn't matter where I stand politically or what I really think about what's happening there. I see people who need help, and people are helping people. And
Totally.
that's what I think that's something like Mr. Rogers said, like always look for the helpers, which is nice. It's been good to know that I'm a part of that community now. So
yeah, for sure.
Are there any like upcoming announcements or things that you want to share from the giving block before we end up our call today?
Man, that is a good question. We definitely had a week full of announcements with our partnership and acquisition with by Shift4. I definitely want to suggest. Oh, actually, I think I can share this here. In the coming weeks, we will be launching what we believe to be the largest donation matching campaign in crypto. That's something really excited that we're able to do with this recent partnership. So, with regards to anyone considering donating in the next couple of weeks, stay tuned for more info, but we will be basically doubling your impact. So we've got a very generous donor who has pledged quite a considerable sum of money and wants to see, essentially how charitable the crypto community wants to be, and we'll see how long that pool of money lasts. But we're really excited about that, and we'll share more info soon, probably in the next week or so. And as far as any other announcements, I would just say stay tuned. We have a lot of things in the works that we're really pumped to share with you. It doesn't really matter if you're in the crypto space, what kind of organization you are, whether you're a DAO, NFT project, exchange, wallet. It really can be anything. If you want to, work on something, feel free to reach out. And hopefully we have an exciting case study to show with what we're doing with Metis as well. So I'd say stay tuned for that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited for figuring out how that integration is going to work and helping the giving block grow its reach for sure.
For sure.
Well, thanks so much. I'll be sure to share links in our show notes to the giving block and to your Twitter. And I'll also drop a few links to um, services where people can look up some like due diligence things for nonprofits like Charity Navigator, Charity Watch, things like that,
Mhm.
if anybody is interested. So, again, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you today.
Yeah, Ashley, thanks for having me, and thanks for everybody for tuning in.
All right.
Cool.